Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first call. Hey, Georgia, how are you? Good to see. I've got you muted at the moment. I've actually just muted everyone. Don't worry. Absolutely don't worry. And also, you don't all have to come on camera if you don't want to, because I'm not usually going to do it. But I just thought it'd be a really nice thing to do for our very first call. So if you want to get on with doing things while you're listening, I will not be offended if you want to turn your camera off. But equally, it's absolutely lovely to see your faces. Hello, everyone. So I've got Georgia, I've got Louise, I've got Gemma. You haven't changed your name. um, I've got Charlotte and Michelle, Claire. Hey guys. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome. Tammy's here. Hello, everybody. Right. Okay. So excited to welcome you all here. Let me know you can hear me okay. Now I have got you all muted, but I would love you to use the the chat box. Claire says she's just stuffing her dinner in. That's absolutely fine. We're not going to watch. Don't worry. Hello, Cheryl. So please do use the chat box in the as I'm talking, and let me know that you're here, and let me know anything that's landed or resonating or any questions you have. I want to talk to you tonight specifically about finding your voice, because I think it ties in really nicely with what we're going to be working on in the first module. By the way, I don't know if everybody saw the post or the email, but the membership is now open, and so you should have got the link and everything by now, so you should be able to go in and get all signed up and get your login. And I know some of you have already done that, and you've already done the first trainings, which I'm really, really, really pleased about, and got some really great takeaways from that. If you haven't, absolutely no pressure, don't worry. We're not expecting you to like do everything immediately, so really don't worry. It's all about your own pace. So I'll just actually change it so I can see you all there. So great. Now the other thing I was going to say is, some months I have got a little something that I want to talk to you about specifically this month, but some months I think what I will also do is do it as a straight Q&A. So you can just show up, you maybe can tell me your questions in advance, and we will just literally first come first served. And I think if you've ever done anything like that before, you'll know that it's really helpful just hearing other people's questions and answers, and you'll tend to come out with something really, really useful, even if it's not your specific question being asked. So yeah, so that's what I just want to say about that. Now let me just get my screen, make sure everybody is coming in. I've got the chat box popped out so I can see you. Okay, fabulous. So let me know in the comments, everybody can hear me okay, everybody can see me okay. And yeah, so I hope you enjoyed. If you haven't looked at the latest module, and it only got released like 4 hours ago, so if you have, you definitely deserve a medal. You will realize that it's taking you on, it's basically figuring out what your journey is going to be in terms of what you're aiming for, because it's very hard to know if you're making progress on anything if you don't know actually where you're starting from, if you don't know what your problems are. And so the whole idea behind the latest module is to really get clear on what your baseline is. But something that I really want to talk about in tonight's call is something that I will talk about with you a lot, and it's something that I want you to be working on. I think we should all be working on always, but I think it's really integral to your content and making your content powerful. And that is, of course, finding your voice. If your content, if everything you put out there was, a bead on a necklace, every blog, every podcast you appear on, every piece social media post you do was a bead, your voice would be the thread that strings it all together. Basically, it is so important. And even as a lifelong writer, and someone who has communicated as for a career, that's a journey that I have been on very recently, because as in business, as in life, we're constantly kind of transforming, and we have various reinventions, and that means that at different points you're going to have to kind of tune in and refine your voice. Maybe you've had a complete career change, you've pivoted, whatever, you're going to have to kind of tune back in and find your voice. And that is certainly something that I have had to do in recent years. And as a writer, I was like, oh my goodness, what is going on? And why am I finding this so difficult? Why am I finding it so hard to connect? But going through that process, what it did is it allowed me to figure out what that process is of finding your voice and how important it actually is. And I want to point out that it's definitely finding your voice, not kind of creating your voice, because it's already there inside you. So it's just hiding behind a bunch of crap, probably. So if you are feeling like communicating is an effort in any way, you haven't found your voice yet. It's hiding behind a lot of kind of, I don't know, a corporate guise maybe, or a lot of fear, which is something that we're going to be talking about. So I teach a lot of things under the umbrella of content, as you all know. I talk about writing skills, I talk about storytelling, I talk about content strategy, and, you know, I can't really get away from it as much as I don't want to. It's marketing as well. But what is at the heart of all of these things is communication. And the reason I teach communication as a bigger subject rather than just writing, you know, how to write copy or something like that, is that it all comes back to this one tragedy. And you might think that's a strong word, but bear with me, that I have been seeing happening for years, basically. And it kind of started when I was in magazines, and I noticed, you know, I kind of really noticed that it was a thing actually when I started my business a couple of years ago and started working with entrepreneurs and helping them with their copy. And that tragedy was that I realized that there were hundreds, thousands, millions of extraordinary women with incredible skills and gifts and knowledge and things that they could teach, and you know, and ambitions which could make them, you know, real role models, who nobody knew about. Nobody knew about them, and no one was ever going to know about them either. And the problem was that either one, they didn't have a platform, or, and that was definitely the case, you know, when I was back in working magazines and nobody had a website or social media platform. We all have platforms now, pretty much now, if we are in the Western world. But the other problem, which is what I see now, is that they weren't using that platform in the right way. They didn't know how to use that platform to kind of connect or grow an audience or build relationships, or you know, get people united behind a kind of a mission and turn it into a movement. And they are the key things that really are going to help you grow a thriving business, basically, and thriving online business. You need people who believe in you and who are behind you. You need to grow not an audience, but a tribe. Actually, you need people who believe in what you believe in, and that's what it's about. And I really truly believe, I don't know if you've heard this quote by Dalai Lama, but I do actually believe this, and that is that the Western woman will save the world. I really believe that. But you know what? She can't do any of that. She can't, you know, shine her light. She can't be a leader. She can't be, she can't inspire people. She can't teach people. She can't change the world. She can't do any of these things if she doesn't find her voice. And that is something that I see is kind of a bit of an epidemic, really, online, with women in business, with talented women with so much to share, is that they just can't find their voice. And that really is the difference between being seen and heard and just kind of like sinking into a sea of samesies. So what finding your voice really is, it's communicating from your heart. And that is why my tagline is Content with a Heartbeat, because it's communicating from the heart, and it's not something that is easy to learn. So you're not going to be able to pick up a book and say, all right, if you do this, 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 and this, you're going to be communicating from your heart. It's not that. It's an energy thing. It's a kind of an energy that you bring to the content you're creating, and you can't fake that. And people can sense the difference. You know, I know that people can sense the difference between a post that I have kind of labored over and used, you know, slavishly followed a formula for and just put out there, and something that is completely inspired and I've posted because it's something that's really on my heart. People can tell the difference. And basically what it is finding your voice is unapologetically and confidently sharing your ideas, your thoughts, your stories, your message, your mission, your unique perspective. That's what is about, you know, that's what your voice is all about. And it's different to brand voice. But here's the clincher: it's about being able to do all of that without fear. I'm not saying it's never going to be scary, but what I am saying is that you've got to be courageous about it. Finding your voice is something you have to start being courageous about, and decide that fear is not going to hold you back. And I know I have a lot of sympathy with that feeling, because that was me not so very long ago, when I was setting up this business, actually. And I started out and I had this kind of like idea in my head, this kind of sense that there was something bigger that I wanted to be communicating. I knew that I wanted to be creating more than kind of a mission-led business. I wanted to create a movement. I wanted to unite people behind an idea, and I kind of up in my head knew what it was, but I was really struggling to communicate it. I was really struggling to figure out what that was, or have the confidence to figure out what that was. And, you know, part of that is because you're starting a business and you're thinking, what's commercial? What do people want? And what I was actually doing is I was looking too much externally at what people wanted, rather than actually thinking, what is it that I really am wanting to share? What is the thing that I believe that is going to be a message that's going to really resonate with people? Now, I have watched all your lovely intro videos. Thank you so much for everyone. I know a lot of you were very, very brave, doing your very first live. And I just want to do a massive round of applause to you all, particularly anyone who's not comfortable with doing anything like that. So really, really proud of you, because that is a first like rung in your kind of ladder towards like getting better at content. But one thing that I found that was a kind of a common theme in all of those videos and in introductions was this kind of feeling of frustration. And I think it is, I mean, let me know if this resonates, but this kind of frustration that you have this really fantastic idea and you don't know how to communicate it. You don't know how to communicate it in a way that's connecting. And actually, I don't know if you saw the thread. I can't remember whether it's Sarah Joanne Ashurst said something in one of the comments, and she said, I've just, you know, since meeting Kate, I've got so excited about copy and communications, because it feels like there's a magic to it. And I said, yes, there is. Every word you speak is a spell. It's true. It can be completely captivating and spellbinding if you do it in the right way. And it's why we talk about, you know, stringing letters together to create a word. It's why we call it spelling, because words are so powerful when you use them correctly. And so finding your voice and being able to, that is basically learning how to use them correctly. And as I've just said, I've been on that journey very recently. Michelle says, I love that magic. It's so true. Because I've been on that journey very recently, I've realized that there are 3 parts to figuring out what your voice is. And I'm going to be sharing those kind of 3 kind of steps. And this is the part of the work that is not tangible, in the sense that I cannot give you a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps and, you know, you'll have it, you've found it. This is something that you've got to work on. This is something you've got to feel into. But hopefully these kind of 3 steps will get you thinking, get the cogs working, and help you kind of strip back, because this is what it's all about. Is, you know, your voice is in there, and it's about stripping back all the stuff that is stopping you from finding it. And there will be something. I know we've got a few mindset coaches inside this group, so you will know all about that. And it is exactly the same with finding your voice and writing. You know, that's what writer's block is. That's what writer's block is. It's basically limiting beliefs and fears that stop you from kind of sharing what you really want to be sharing and sharing your message. So for me, the first step was realizing, you know, I suddenly thought to myself, right, I've got writer's block. And so I started analyzing, what is this writer's block thing? Because I can always remember laughing about writer's block, because obviously if you write for a magazine and you're expected to churn out a ton of copy by the end of the day, you can't have writer's block. You can't turn around to your editor and say, oh, so sorry, I've got writer's block today, I can't do it. And so I always kind of like thought it was a false thing, because I was so used to just churning stuff out. And suddenly I have had what I've always wanted, which is my own platform, and I can share whatever I want, and I can talk about whatever I want, and I can state an opinion that is my own. And suddenly that was incredibly intimidating, and that was giving me writer's block. And what was at the root of that writer's block was a whole lot of fear. And so that is the first thing I want you to look at, because if we go back to talking about, is your communications feeling like an effort? Are you having to think about it a bit too much? Is it, do you feel like it's all up in your head and you just can't translate it? There is something holding you back. You have some kind of writer's block, and it is often rooted in some kind of fear. Now, the really common ones, and the ones that I experienced, they're all the ones that you all encounter, is things like imposter syndrome. It's things like, because we're suddenly showing up in a very public way on social media, largely, it's things like, I'm actually going to turn off my ring light because it's making me feel like I get a suntan. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to be dark. It's things like, what are my friends and family going to say? Are they going to be like, oh, who is she coming on and talking about this and that? That is a really common one. It's worrying about showing up as an expert and thinking, what are my ex-colleagues going to think of me, like positioning myself in this way? Are they going to be thinking like, who am I? And all these kind of things. It's fearing people from my past suddenly going to rear their ugly head. That ran through my head. It's the other fear that I had was realizing, I was thinking like, maybe I've got it all wrong. Maybe I'm teaching this wrong. Maybe I don't really know. And everybody else who teaches this and talks on this has some kind of secret sauce. And I'm going to be laughed at. These are things coming up. If any of these are resonating, let me know. Pop them in the chat box. I would love to know if there's anything that's springing to mind that is stopping you from showing up. That's coming just coming to you straight away. And actually, the module, when you work through, there's a worksheet for the module if you're not familiar with it. What I actually said in the training is like, really feel into, when you're doing these questions, what gives you a niggle, what gives you a horrible feeling in your tummy, what is it, and look what's behind it, because there is always something hiding. Claire says everything. Rachel says you're literally reading my brain. And that's the thing, we're all exactly the same. We all think the same things. Don't look at who, like Carrie Green or Marie Forleo, and don't think that they don't have those thoughts or didn't have those thoughts when they first started showing up. But what the difference was, that they decided to push those thoughts aside and overcome them. I'm going to talk about how to do that as well, but that really is the only difference, is that they decided to ignore them. So it's not that, or overcome them. It's not that anyone else has this kind of infallible nerve of steel. Everybody, there you go. How many of you have said that you kind of related to every single one of those? Another one of my fears was a fear of looking a bit stupid. Another fear of mine was, what if I got on a call like this and somebody asked me a question and I didn't know the answer, and I wasn't like the be all and end all, like ultimate knowledge on everything. And then obviously I realized, well, actually I don't know the answer to everything, and it's absolutely fine if I say, I'm sorry, I don't know the answer to that, I can come back to you. All these things that I was terrified of and stopped me from showing up and stopped me from sharing. And the other thing is, Laura Jane says, that's my fear. Yeah, and it's absolutely fine. You don't know everything. And, Denise Duffield Thomas said, and I can't remember when she said it or where she said it, but she said, people aren't looking for a guru. They're not looking for someone who knows absolutely everything on everything. They're just looking for somebody who knows a little bit more than them, who can just help them along the way. You don't have to know everything. You just have to know enough to make a difference to people. And that's what you've got to focus on. You haven't got to, if you're always constantly thinking, I've got to know everything and I've got to be everything and I've got to be the best, well, that's just so intimidating. You're never going to show up. You're never going to do it, because you are, you're setting yourself up for a massive fall. But if you're thinking, well, owning who you are and accepting, there is definitely somebody I can help. There is definitely one person I can help. And that's all you need to start from. And there is more than that, I guarantee. Ruth Ellen says, worrying about delivering it the wrong way. Tammy says, perhaps I'm actually the only one who finds me interesting. Yeah, I think fearing that you're not interesting. Getting found out, that is a really common one. I literally had a reaction to all of those things. There you go. And if you had a reaction to any one of those things, it's something that you need to write down and have to think about. And the other thing is, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, and to some of you, this might sound like, oh my God. but I don't know if you've ever heard of the witch wound. But whenever I found out about the witch wound a couple of years ago, that just hit the nail on the head of me. It's the witch wound is the idea that, you know, generationally women have been suppressed, and it has been dangerous for women to have a voice, and it's been dangerous for women to be powerful, and therefore it's ingrained in us to be scared of showing up and sharing and being different and being powerful and sharing our voices. And the minute I read about that, it really resonated with me. And actually that's one of the things that triggered me to think that I really want to do this work, because I know there is so many people suffering from that, and not, it's the witch wound, the witch wound it's called. It's, you know, based on kind of like generations of persecution, women have become used to being silent. It is safe to be silent. And so suddenly we are in the 21st century and everybody has a platform, and all women, if you're in the Western world, have a voice, and it's hard to find it. And that's one of the things. It's a course of study that could be behind it all. But, you know, all those things: imposter syndrome, fear of what people say, who is she, who does she think she is she an authority, people are going to I'm suddenly going to get a stalker. That's something I've heard of a lot before. If I get visible, I'm going to get a stalker, so I can't do it. Yeah, so there, so do look into that. But so I think it's fair to say all of you resonated with some, if not all, of those things, and they are definitely going to be something that you need to be working through if you want to be showing up and finding your voice. And, you know, the first step for me is looking at those fears and just writing them all down, everything, all the stupid fears, you know, every single fear that you have that is at the back of your mind is, if I showed up and shared my true voice, if I was actually me, if I shared the message I really wanted to share, because I don't think it's unusual to have a message that you really want to share, but actually you are playing the safe route. That's what I did at first. If I shared the message I really wanted to share, what is the worst that could happen? What are the things that I'm scared could happen? And writing them all down. And if you've done any mindset work, you'll be very familiar with this kind of process, where you kind of look at it and you say, you know, is this true? Would this really happen? You know, what is the worst? Is this, you know, one of the common ones is, you know, what do my friends and family think? Well, you know, actually they probably don't think anything. They probably think, oh, that's not for me. And they scroll on by, they don't read it. You know, they're not interested. You know, they're not sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, you know, I think Rachel said she resonates with all of them. You know, Rachel's filling up my news feed with all this stuff about mindset. They're not thinking that. They're thinking, oh no, that's not for me. And they're scrolling on, you know. So look at those fears and decide, you know, is it actually a real fear? Because some of them won't be. And then look at how you can then reframe them, because that's really important, is reframing them into something positive. So it could be like, you know, so one thing that actually a lot of my clients have is they hate posting, for example, on their personal Facebook pages, because they're like, oh my gosh, you know, it's going to be so embarrassing because my friends and family. I think Amandine said actually she posted on her personal Facebook page for the first time this week. But the truth is, you're not going to get seen on a Facebook business page. You might get seen in a Facebook group if you have a growing group, but the place people are going to see you are on your Facebook personal page. And the truth is, if anyone is going to want to share your message and let other people know about you, it's your friends and family. So if you aren't showing up and letting your friends and family know what you're doing, thank you. If you're not showing up and letting your friends and family know what you're doing, you are wasting such an amazing opportunity for people who love you and trust you and know you already to say, I know somebody who does that. I know somebody who can help you with that. So there you go. There is a positive reframe from, you know, I don't want to annoy my friends and family. Well, actually, maybe your friends and family are waiting and really would love to be able to support you. And because you're not showing up and hiding, they think it's not something they're involved in. Welcome them in, you know, let them know, you know, I'm going to be talking about my business on my personal page. You know, if it's not for you, it's not for you. Absolutely fine. But if you want to share it with anyone, you know, and if this interests you, please, you know, engage and enjoy it. You know, that's a reframe that you can use. So writing down all the things you fear. The next step of this, and this was the step where everything changed for me, is connecting with your vision. Now, once you've worked through this month's module, you will know that it is all about having a vision of who, you know, this is where I am and this is where I want to be. And knowing who you want to be is really, really important. Knowing, you know, what is it that I believe? What is it that I stand for? What is the worldview and the unique perspective that I want to be putting out there in an ideal world? And it isn't a trick question. You know, it could be that all you want to do is be really fantastic in your specific field, you know, and you want to be someone who kind of makes a dent in your industry. Or it could be that your vision is massive and you want to be like the next Oprah. It doesn't matter, but just get really clear on what that vision is and bring it into Technicolor. And, you know, think, you know, if I was this person, you know, what would I be doing? What would my business look like? Who would I be serving? How would I be serving them? How would I be showing up? What kinds of things would I be doing with them and talking to them about? You know, so getting really clear on that big picture vision is really important. And I do a lot of meditation and visualization, and I think visualization is so important on when you're talking to this piece of kind of finding your voice and unraveling all the things that are stopping you being you. I think visualization is really powerful. And if you would be interested in me recording an actual visualization, like a future self visualization that you can listen to help you get into that, I will do that. So let me know if you would like me to do that, because I can do that. And I think it is so powerful, because this is a vision that I want you to be connecting to all the time, because it all goes back to that, what we were talking about, that energy. Because you do not want to be showing up. If you, at the moment, let's say for argument's sake, at the moment, you don't really know who you are, you're not engaging the people you want to be engaging, and you are feeling like you're hiding. If you stay inside that energy now, that is the energy that you're giving off, and nothing is going to change. But so the third step of this process is taking that big picture vision and embodying her in all of your content from now. Because, you know, Marie Forleo did not become Marie Forleo when she suddenly hit 1 million viewers on Marie TV. She was her from day one. And that is why she hit the 1 million viewers, because she found her voice and she had the confidence. And I'm not saying she didn't grow and change, but she was showing up authentically, as authentically her. She was owning her message. She was owning her purpose. She was willing to kind of stand up and say, this is what I believe about the world. This is what I believe, and I'm going to be sharing it with you. They weren't worrying about polarizing. She wasn't worrying about polarizing, because she knew that you have to polarize to attract the people that you want and weed out the people who are never going to be interested in you. So that is the third step of the process. It is doing that future visioning and getting a feel for who that woman is and starting to act like her inside everything actually, but particularly inside your content. Because when you bring that energy to the content that you're creating, whether we are talking like a social media post or a video or a lead magnet or something that you're creating through your art or whatever it is, that is when you become that person. You become that person, and it's not something that I hope I'm making sense, is you don't suddenly become the woman who has the hugely engaged following and the thriving business. You don't suddenly turn into her. You have to be her to become her. You have to kind of decide, this is how I'm going to show up. And then you're going to think, well, you know, how does that person, and in fact, it might even help, think of somebody who is where you want to be. And say like, okay, well, how are they showing up? What are they doing? Are they afraid to share their true aligned message? Are they hiding away and disappearing for a week at a time? Are they too scared? For example, Louise Howard, I'm talking to you to tell people what the next step is and do an offer. No, they're not, because you know, something I've talked about is, you know, with your content, you're filling up a love bank. You are creating so much value and goodwill so that whenever you do say, oh, this is what the next step is and this is what my offer is, they're like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to tell me all along. I can't wait to work with you, because you have shown them so much value and so much goodwill. So that's what your content is about. It is about kind of filling up that love bank of goodwill and know, like, and trust, and authority building, so that you can easily give a little live training and then say, okay, and this is the next step. If you want to work with me, you can jump on a call, you can buy this, whatever, you can sign up to this, so that's what it's about. Over, yes, please, for future self visualizations. Okay, brilliant. I will get on to that. I regularly chat with my future self. Yes, me too. I have a lovely visualization that I do, and go to her house and she shows me around. I still have her book to start reading. Who's that? I can't remember who I mentioned now. Tammy says, you have to polarize to attract the people you want and to weed out the people who don't belong in your tribe. And that's it. And I think this is another fear. Another fear is showing up as the real you, just in case you push some people away. And there's this, and you will have heard this before, marketing 101, figure out what your avatar is and everything. But the truth is, it's not just about figuring out what your avatar is. It's about not being afraid to show up as you, because you will naturally, just as in real life, you will naturally attract certain people to you, and you will naturally not be friends with other people. They won't be part of your world and your circle. And you want to be doing exactly the same online. You want to be, that is why finding your voice is a really important piece of the puzzle, because you want to be attracting the people who are like you and that you like and that you want to be working with and who get you, and the kind of people who, when you tell them, this is what I believe, this is what I stand for, this is what my business is about, they will get behind you and they say, yes, I am completely behind this. And that is when your mission turns into a movement. That's when people start becoming your advocate. That's when people start talking about, have you heard about so-and-so, or have you seen this, and you've got to watch this, because you have been courageous enough to stand out as yourself. Marie TV, Joanna, yeah, it's all figure outable. Yes, that's Marie Forleo's book. Claire says, it's hard to figure out who you are sometimes. There is so much noise, it can be easy to forget. You've already helped me with that, but this is a wonderful reminder to get back to that. Yes, exactly. Let me know if that is any, what is landing there with you. What are you kind of recognizing in yourself? Is there any, is this work that you think that is going to make a difference when your mission becomes a movement? Yes, that is exactly it. This is what you want. You want to be creating communities. You want to be, and you create community by building a tribe. You don't just want an audience, you want an audience who love you. So it is a movement. That is when people become advocates of you. That is when people start talking about you and sharing your ideas. And that's what we all want, really. We're all passionate, in our own little way about the thing that we do. And we want other people to love it too. And, that is such an important part of, what is our greatest asset? What's our greatest differentiator? It's us. It's our perspective. It's our worldview. It's our stories. And what is stopping us from sharing those things? Well, we've just said it's a whole lot of fear. That's what's stopping us from sharing all those things. A whole lot of fear. And so you've got to figure out what those are. You've got to figure out who you want to be. And then you've got to find the courage to be that person now, and stop waiting to be her. Stop waiting. There's not going to be some kind of like permission slip, right? Oh, now you can show up as this kind of big influencer with a massive following. You've got to act like you are, even if you're sending out your email list to 3 people, you've got to act like you're sending it out to thousands of people. Even if your Instagram following is like 20 people and half of them are your friends, you've got to act like you're talking to more people. That is how you start, creating the kind of content that's going to make you stand out. People will buy into that authority. They believe what you show up as. So if you're showing up as a little bit retiring, a little bit shy, they believe that you are a bit shy and retiring. If you don't show up in your full authority, they will believe that you're not that authoritative on that subject. If you hardly ever turn up, people will think you're just doing it as a hobby, or they might not even know that you're doing it at all. So you've got to take it seriously. You've got to show up consistently. You've got to show up in your authority, and you've got to be the woman, the influencer, the thought leader, the woman, the leader of your niche that you want to be now, right now. And that is how you will grow into her, and it will start being reflected in the engagement you receive and your audience and all those things. Laura Jane says, I've realized this week too. Not having a following yet, not having those people who have to respond, that makes me wonder if I'm doing the right things. Okay, firstly, I want to point out there is quite a few people who have joined this membership this month who I don't think, I didn't even know you were in my community. You've never liked, some of them had never liked or commented on a post of mine, ever. And there's at least 2 people who'd never liked or commented on a post I joined ever, but said, I have followed you for a while and I wanted to get involved and work with you. So that is number 1. So don't necessarily pay too much attention to likes and comments, because they really are just vanity metrics. Obviously, it's very nice to get engagement, and the more engagement you get, the more of a boost your algorithm gets. But don't get too hung up on that for a start. What was the other thing I was going to say on that? Yeah, and the other thing is, the smaller your audiences, it's going to be like that. It is going to be like posting to tumbleweed for a little while. But the people who succeed at this are the people who are consistent, and they're like, they post through the tumbleweed, they keep going, they don't get disheartened, because they know that there is this kind of tipping point where suddenly it does start happening, and it does start you've got to persevere even when you're not getting the feedback. And that really is the differentiating factor between the people who succeed and the people who don't at this kind of thing, is that the people who succeed just keep going even when it kind of looks a little bit like, oh crap, because if it was a sure thing, everybody would be doing it. If it was a quick thing, everybody would have done it. The difference is, there's a quote from Carrie Green, and I think it's totally the truth with content as well, is the one who, I can't remember exactly what it is, but the one who survives is the one who keeps hanging on the ledge. The one who succeeds is the one who keeps hanging on the ledge after everybody else has dropped off. And that is the truth with this. The other thing I'm going to say to you about audiences, when you see people with thousands of people in their audience, there is, at some point, they will have paid for ads. It is very hard to grow an organic audience into the thousands and 10Ks and everything without some kind of advertising spend. And even having a big audience doesn't necessarily mean that you have an engaged audience. It's far more important to have an engaged audience than it is to have a massive audience. So that's another thing you've got to think about. And there will get a stage in everybody's journey, depending on what your ambitions are. If you're only ever going to sell one-to-one, you may never ever have to invest in advertising, because you rely on word of mouth referrals and those kind of things. But if you do want to get to the stage of one-to-many and those kind of things, that's when you are going to have to start investing at some point into paid for marketing. And that's absolutely fine. And that's something that, I'm starting to do again. I've never had to need to do it really before, because I've only ever done small group programs and one-to-one, and I've never had the need. Now I do. And now I realize, okay, I'm selling one-to-many. So suddenly I do have to invest in advertising and that kind of thing. But you've got to look at your business model and see when it's a good time for you. So don't get discouraged by the numbers. What is more important is that you have an engaged audience, a small engaged audience. So focus on the people you have, give them the love that you can. That is the advantage of having a small audience, is that you can give them loads of love. You can really help them. I've got 26 people in this membership. That's a good start for a membership, but by all means I would like a much larger membership. But what is the advantage now is that I can give you all a lot more attention than I could if I had 500 people suddenly join. I can give you all attention, and I can learn how this thing works more easily with a more manageable amount of people. And it's exactly the same with your audience as well. Laura Jane says consistency is my problem. Yeah, consistency is, I'm glad it is hard. I find it hard. I find it hard to show up every day. The easiest way to show up is on a live, and I don't always look very respectable for a live, is the truth. So I don't always do it. And yeah, I find it really hard, but it's figuring out, that's where signature content can really come into its own. That's where scheduling can really come into its own, and batching things like signature content. When I talk about signature content, I'm talking about those kind of bigger pieces of content that you're putting out ideally on a weekly basis. They're kind of a bit more evergreen content, the kind of content that you can point people towards. So it might be like a blog post on how to, I don't know, do a keto diet or something like that. And that's something that, people often ask, oh, here, I've got a blog post on that, and you can direct people to it, that's kind of thing. And that's the kind of thing, that you can then, you've got an email to send to your list every week. Oh, look, here's my latest blog post, my latest podcast, my latest video on YouTube or whatever. Yeah. Okay, cool. So let me know the 3 steps to finding your voice. Which ones, I mean, how do you all, I'd love to know how you all feel in that kind of, like on a scale of 1 to 10, if you could put it in the chat box. Where do you think you rate, with 1 being like you haven't found your voice at all and you're kind of like a robot, and 10 being like, yep, absolutely have my voice, I've got my mission nailed, I'm able to share my stories. Oh, hey Ramonda, hey lovely. Honestly, even with 1,000 followers, sometimes I struggle with the same things. Yeah. Can we recap on the 3 steps? So the 3 steps to finding your voice I'm just going to recap them. It's clearing your fears. So it's tapping into all those things that are holding us back. It's going back to the same kind of thing that you'd work on with mindset work. We talked about several of them, but let me just go and see what they were. I've just got a few notes. It's like imposter syndrome, fear of what my friends and family would say if I shared my true message, being called out as a fraud or not the expert, people telling you that you've got it wrong, or you're missing out on the secret sauce that somebody else has and you don't know have. Fear of success, fear of failure. There are other things that stop us from showing up. So that's the first step, is figuring out what those fears are, and reframing them, and kind of like asking, are these real fears, and really should I be allowing them to stop me from kind of shining my light? And the second step is connecting with your vision. So it's like getting really clear on who that person is that you want to be inside your content. Do you want to be a thought leader? Do you want to be a leader in your niche? Do you want to be a leading voice in your field? Do you want to be like, challenging ways that people are thinking? What is that big picture of who you are? Is it, is it a leader in your particular niche or industry? Is it Oprah style fame with, a magazine and a TV show? Make it go big. Like, no one else knows what your vision is. Don't be embarrassed. Just like share your biggest, wildest vision and know what it is, because then you know where you have got to be getting to. And the third step is being her, asking like, how is she showing up? Who is she? How does she show up? How often does she show up? What does she talk about? Okay, so I've got a lot of 6 here. I've got 6 from Amandine, 8 from Ruth, 5, voice 7, but vision is fuzzy. Yeah. 7, 4, I have so many aspects of it, but it's currently a tangled ball thread I have to untangle and clarify. And Michelle says, voice is middling, but vision is very clear. Yeah. And I think, and 6 to 7, and Cheryl said hard time with number 3, which is embodying it. And that is something you're just going to have to work on. And, we can do it together. It's fine. We're here for you. It's a scary thing. But, it's just things like, just a few of you done your first lives. Well, that is a really great first step to showing up as that person. Do you think, whoever that person is, do you think she's scared of doing lives? No, she's confident and she's cool as a cucumber, and she's showing up and sharing her message, and she's sharing her stories, and she's connecting, and she's got tons of people commenting and engaging. And that's the way you've got to start thinking about it and envisioning it. Yeah. Okay, cool. So any questions, anything that I have come up that is feeling uncomfortable to you? I know, well, Cheryl's saying she's had a hard time with embodying it. Does anybody else feel that too? And the other thing I want to say is this is all very tied up with your messaging as well. And that is something that I know that a lot of people have talked about either in their intros or whenever they've done their assessment, knowing that their messaging is feeling very unclear. And I think what I'm going to do is bring forward the messaging module a bit sooner, because your voice actually can be very mixed up with your messaging, because you will change your messaging according to whatever fears you have around showing up and kind of like owning who you are, or, you know, aligning with your true message. You know, that the reason we don't do that is often that we're kind of like, oh, why would anyone want me to talk about that? And what do I know about so and so? And is anyone interested in that? And so they are, you know, tied up together. So I think I probably will bring forward the messaging module, because I think it is so foundational. It's so foundational. It's really difficult to show up and give valuable content until you're quite clear what your message is. And a really good a good place to just get started is, you know, what I do is what I believe, and I believe, and then write that down and journaling around that subject and seeing what comes out. What I do is what I believe, and what I believe is. And that's a really powerful way to start getting to the heart of what you're really about. Yeah. So the other thing you can do, I don't know whether any of you are familiar with the 5 whys exercise. I call it like it's very much like peeling the onion, you know, getting to the root of your message and why you do what you do is very much like peeling an onion. And the truth is, like, most people show up with the kind of brown papery skin of things, and what we really want is that beautiful white ball at the middle, the center of the onion. And a really good way of getting clear on what that is doing the 5 whys exercise. So you start off with whatever question it is that you have. So in this instance, it would be, you know, why do I do what I do? And you write down an answer to that. And then whatever your answer is, you then ask the question, why? Why is that the answer to that? You know, so I might say, you know, I teach entrepreneurs how to find their voice. I teach entrepreneurs to find their voice because I think too many women are hiding their light, and it's important that they get out and shine. And so then the next question would be, why? Why is it important that they stop hiding their light and they're coming out and shine? And then I would answer that question. And then whatever I answer that question, you then again ask why. And you keep going through that process 5 times. And that is a really good way of kind of getting to the root. It can produce some real ahas as to what was the reason I actually did this in the first place. Why is it that I think like that? And it's funny, we think we know our own minds, but actually we don't until you start exploring your messaging, and you start kind of finding your voice and doing things like journaling and daily daily, you know, morning pages, things like that, where you sit down and kind of like just journal and see what comes out. You suddenly realize that you don't know your own mind at all. You're just like running on autopilot. And it's only whenever you start kind of dipping in and doing that work that you actually realize, oh, that's the reason I do that. I didn't realize that. I don't know if that resonates with anyone. Oh, I didn't know it was developed by Toyota, Claire. I did know it was a kind of like a Japanese business thing. Yeah, it was developed by Toyota as a part of a problem-solving technique to get to the root cause of problems. Yeah, and it worked really well with this as well. Yeah, if Michelle says, I'm forever asking my clients to ask why. Well, exactly the same. You can do that about yourself to help you get to the root of your messaging as well. Tammy says Dean Graziosi teaches it too. 7 layers. Yeah. So all of this, your voice, your messaging, all those things is about kind of peeling an onion. It's all about coming back to the layers, and you're kind of like, you know, we all hear this kind of a hashtag authenticity thing all the time, and it gets a little bit grating and boring, but actually it's really, really, really important, because you are what differentiates you. You are what makes you stand out from the crowd. You are what gets your brand remembered. It's all about you. And so until you learn to show up as you and kind of embrace who you are, you're always going to be, one of the crowd, really. And this is what this whole membership is about, really. I'm going to give you the tools to create powerful content, but without this element, it just becomes cookie cutter content. It's just a bit flat. It's missing that kind of heart. It's all about communicating heart to heart, because that is, when you communicate heart to heart with people, that's when you move them. And when you move them, that's when they take action, and that's when they, build a relationship with you. And that's what this is all about. You want to move people. You want to connect with people. You want to connect with them on a deeper level. And you can't connect with them on a deeper level if you're not showing up authentically. And so that's why the authentic thing, as annoying as it can be sometimes, that kind of about being genuine, is so important to work out. And it is not easy. It's really not easy, because you'd think that as a journalist that I would find it easy to just show up as me. But actually I didn't find that easy at all, because whenever I was writing my content for magazines and stuff, I was showing up in the voice of my magazine. I was following their agenda. Even if I was writing in the first person, I was following their agenda. I was having to censor myself in some way. And we all do that in our communications, in our working life, in the corporate life, in how we present ourselves to the wider public when we were employed by someone. And we carry on doing it, and suddenly we have our own platform, and it's hard to tap in to who we really are. And there's two extremes. There's like who you are when you're at home with your family, and there's a version, an authentic version of you, and that's the one that you show up and present online. And that's what you're looking for, to kind of you're looking to tap into that realness. Anyway, I hope that is resonating. Now let me know. We've got about 8 or 9 more minutes to go before we hit the hour. Do you have any questions on this? Do you have any questions on anything else? I'm here for you. If you have any questions, please pop them in the chat box and I can speak to them or help you with them. Or if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you and I'll come back to you. So put them into the chat box if you have any questions. I'm going to see. Does anyone have a question? No? Are you all good? Is there anything in there that you're struggling with and kind of railing against? I'm still, Rachel says, I'm still wondering about sharing more personal posts. We'll be looking at sales. Okay, personal posts. How do we start going live and putting more content out there? Okay, all right then. Okay, I'll start off. Okay, so behind the scenes, we did talk about this briefly, I think, actually in a post. Behind the scenes is a really great way to let people in. So I think going personal is something that people really, really struggle with. It's kind of that kind of, people really hate doing it. They feel like, and I think actually you said, Rachel, that you weren't even very good at normal social media with your friends. Suddenly having to do it for your business and being personal is quite uncomfortable. And yeah, I can understand that. Now, the first thing to know, and this is a really good piece of advice, this is what Jenna Kutcher does. If you don't listen to Jenna Kutcher, her Gold Digger podcast is excellent, actually. It's a really worthwhile listen for whenever you are starting to get visible and you're building an online business. Do listen to that. But she talks about, she's very good at sharing a blend of personal stuff and letting people in and building connection. But she actually says, I am, people think I share everything, but I absolutely don't. And what she does is she chooses 5 things about her personal life that she is willing to share about. It's something, and then the rest of it she keeps for herself. And that is a really good way of creating a boundary. So those 5 things, could be depending on what your business is, it could be your fitness regime, it could be your kids, it could be your home style, it could be your pets, it could be your fashion, it could be what you read, so it could be really broad, but it could be really kind of like lasered in things. It doesn't have to be you kind of like showing everybody what your like messy kitchen looks like, or you know what you look like when you sit up in bed in the morning and you have no makeup on. You don't have to get that raw and real, but just picking 5 things that you feel comfortable with, that's a really good start. The first really easy way to start sharing behind the scenes, so behind the scenes is it's great for things on like IG stories and stuff like that, and Raimonda will you know, be able to give lots of advice on IG. She's an absolute expert. But a really great way to start getting started with behind the scenes is going with where you're comfortable. So where's the first place behind the scenes where you're comfortable? It is inside your business. That is a really easy place that you can start going behind the scenes. So what does that look like? That looks like, you know, how are you preparing for your day's work? You know, how do you work? What does, I don't know, where's your work? What's your workspace like? You know, what's your morning routine? You know, do you have something that you do every morning before you go to work, or do you have a particular routine that you could share? Another great way of sharing behind the scenes is, you know, talking about, you know, what is it that you're working on at the moment and why is it interesting you? You know, just saying, you know, today I'm working on this project and this is what's happening. You know, it's really as simple as that. And people think, I think you know, people think, oh my goodness, who cares about me and what I'm doing? But the truth is, and people are endlessly nosy. That's why they're on social media, because they're interested in other people's lives and they're trying to connect. And you know, think of the things that you look at and the weird random things that grab your attention whenever you're scrolling through social media. They are just so random, and I will much more likely get stopped, you know, pause the scroll, if I see a real photograph from somebody, a real photograph that looks like it's been taken on their iPhone at home doing whatever they were doing today. I'm much more likely to pause and stop and read that post than I am a beautiful styled photo. And those beautiful styled photos certainly have their place in terms of your branding. But when we're talking about connection and behind the scenes, you know, taking a photograph of you at your desk, that's much more likely to pause my scroll and think, oh, so what does Rachel do? What does Rachel do every day? You know, what's her routine? What's she working on right now? What's on her mind? Other easy ways of showing behind the scene, which also are a great way of building your authority, is things like so being inspired by something that's happening inside your business. So I don't know whether some of you might have client calls, or some of you might be working on a particular project and a particular lesson will come up or something will come up, and you can just share it and you can say, oh, I was talking to a client today, or I was working on this job today and this came up, and you just share that little story about that. So that is a really simple way to start easing you in behind the scenes. And then slowly that kind of like talking about your morning routine might turn into talking about, you know, what happened in a conversation with a friend, and that's how you slowly kind of bring it in. And you know, it doesn't have to be anything groundbreaking, or you don't have to be like lazing around on a yacht. In fact, if you were lazing around on a yacht, people would be less interested than if you were kind of taking a picture of your grubby trainers while you're going out for a walk with your dog. People probably be far more interested in that, as the truth. Okay, so does that help you a little bit, Rachel? Let me know if that kind of answers a few questions. Brilliant, great. I hope that's a good starter. Will we be looking at sales, Kate? Yes, as in social selling strategies. Yes, we can certainly talk to that. There is an element of that I can talk about quite easily. So if you have any specific questions about that, give me a shout. How do we start going live now and putting more content out there while we are trying to discover our voice? Well, actually, part of discovering your voice is just going out and giving it a try. And the best time to try to discover your voice and try and give it a try is when your audience is smaller. And you know, I think when people go live, they seem to think that they have to do it perfectly, that it has to be perfectly scripted, there can't be any mistakes, there can't be any like random children running in the background. And I tell you what, all those things have happened to me. I flush bright red very often when I go live, and I can't help it. It's just, I am like this massive blusher. It just happens, and I just accept it, and that's how it's going to be. And I think you just have to just start doing it. Decide that the first thing to do is, what can I talk about today which is going to be really valuable to my audience? So for example, you could, one of the ways it's actually really useful is think, what are like 4 or 5 common mistakes that my audience are making with regard to my subject? What are 4 or 5 common mistakes? Pick one of those mistakes and jump on a live and say, today I want to talk about this. This is a mistake that I see people making all the time, and this is why it's a problem, and here's the solution, and here's the next step. And just get started. Start with the stuff that you're really comfortable with. I'm not asking you to go on and like have a big kind of ramble about your values and beliefs until you're feeling there. If going live is something that is your first challenge, go live with something you feel really comfortable with, something that you know that you can talk and deliver on. And then once you're really comfortable with that, then you might start going live and talking about things which are maybe a little bit more distinctive and more about you. So is that helpful? Let me know if you have any other questions. Okay. Raymonda says, I may be IG queen, but I sometimes struggle to share behind the scenes. It's common. Everyone does it. Everyone does worry about it. My big problem is that I never have my hair or makeup done, so I don't want to show up. That is one of my really big problems, is like not showing up looking perfect. And not that I ever look perfect, but yeah, that is one of my big barriers. Yeah. Oh, Laura Jane's gone. Okay, have you read Show Your Work by Austin Kleon? I haven't actually. I will check that out. Just being more confident. Okay, so Claire wants to talk about being more confident in terms of selling. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think the other thing is the simple way to do it is start thinking about your content as this love bank, which I keep talking about. Is you are filling up everybody's love bank, and I am guarantee, and I'm sure Claire, you are actually one of them. You are putting lots of valuable content out there. You are doing trainings out there. You're putting, you're sharing stories. You are filling up your content love bank for sure. So you should not be feeling awkward at all about selling. However, yeah, we will do, because I don't know if anyone has ever seen that that video Denise Duffield Thomas does about talking about how women sell versus how men sell, and the women are like, oh gosh, I'm really embarrassed, but I mean, I can actually give you a discount if you want, and well, actually I'm not really selling it, you can have it for free if you want. And the men are like, here's my product, here's how much it is, and that's it. And it really is actually that simple. But yeah, we all do really struggle with it. But the great thing about content is that you are getting to kind of sell to them whilst giving them lots already. So don't feel like you have to be doing the discount or doing the freebie thing. You're already giving them lots already, because you're showing up and you're building the know, like, and trust, and you're inspiring them, and you're sharing tons of value. And when you have shared a ton of value, it's really easy to say, it's almost like to just invite them to take the next step. That's what you're doing. You're not doing the hard sell. You're just inviting them to take the next step. So you're just saying, okay, here's my beautiful, awesome piece of value. And if this is something you're interested in, you would like a little bit more help with, this is what you do next. It really can be as simple as that, because actually also you've got to think of it as a customer service. How annoyed would you be if you were scrolling through, like, I see a lot of things I like to buy on Instagram. How annoying would it be if you scroll through on Instagram, you saw something that was available for sale, but they didn't have a button that said buy? That would just be A, the most stupid thing you've ever seen in your life, and B, it would be so annoying. So when you look at it like that, suddenly you're showcasing yourself, you're showcasing your talent. People are never ever going to be more likely to think, I'd like to find out more about what she does, than right then. So it doesn't have to be this kind of overt, massive salesy piece. It just has to be like, PS. The power of the PS is great. It's very like in your face. The power of the PS is really handy. You just say, PS, if you want to find out what the next step is, or the next step is to jump on a call with me, or this might help you. If you want a little bit more help with this product might help. It really doesn't have to be anything more, anything bigger than that. The other thing to remember is, and we will talk about this later on, is the 80-20 rule of content. And that is, you should always give 80% value and only 20% of selling. So that means that for example, if you're sending out an email every week, you could send 3 emails which are pure value, and that does not mean to say at the bottom of them you can't say PS, you know, there's 3 ways to work with me, but you'd have 3 emails of pure value, and then you would have one which was literally telling them about an offer you have. And you can do that with absolutely no shame, because you've already done 3 really highly valuable emails to them that they've really enjoyed and have really helped them. So does that make you feel different about that? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to know. I think there's quite a few of you that struggle with that one. So let me know in the comments if that was helpful. The jab, jab, jab hook rule helped me a lot. Yeah, I love that. The jab, jab, jab hook rule. That's fabulous. Okay. There was another question. Now I've lost it now. Okay, choosing what to tell and share. That is something that we will talk about in more detail. So I'm really torn which which module to put up next for July, because half of you struggling with messaging and half of you struggling with what to say. But knowing what to talk about, I think the first step is, and I'll talk about very briefly, and we will talk about it more in the being the editor-in-chief of your brand, but it's really, really helpful if you start looking at your content and everything that you put out there like a magazine. And you know, you're thinking, like, give yourself like a month period, so you know that that's your issue. You know, whatever you put out between this date and this date, whatever you put out in June is your issue, and all the content you put out for your brand is content of your magazine. And what you need to do is, so if I was planning a magazine issue, I would know that I would need like an inspiring real life story. So it should be like a case study. I know that I'd need an opinion piece, which is basically authority building. I know that I would need some kind of social proof of how, you know, how good we are, you know, what we're doing. And that's kind of, that's testimonials, that's readers' letters, that's testimonials. I would know that I would need, what else would I need? Just off the top of my head, I would need something really practical, some kind of like self-help, personal development type piece that's going to help on a specific subject. So I'd know that they were the kind of areas that I needed to be covering over a period of time, like a month or whatever, in my issue. But then I'd also know that if you turn to the front of any magazine, it has a contents, and that contents is always separated into subjects. And so you would have like food and home and cooking and, you know, features or whatever. And so you just decide you can have exactly the same. They're your content pillars. And so you just choose what your kind of 5 or 7 content pillars are. And they are the main kind of big chunks of a subject that you're going to be talking on. And then you just take each of those contents and you think, right, I need something that is going to be a case study. I need to tell a story in some way. How can I do that? I can do that under, you know, the mindset heading. You know, I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go into that in more detail in the being the editor-in-chief of your brand training, but that should give you an idea. But it is so much easier to think of, and I'm not a massive fan of over content planning things. However, that is a really good structure to have in your head. Yeah. So yeah, Louise has 7 topics to choose from. That's brilliant. They're your content pillars. Yes, Michelle, I can put together a post on that to help you. There will be a clearer training on it, but yeah, I could definitely do that. Tammy says she's been running on the 100-0 rule. Oh dear, no, we don't want that. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. Okay, brilliant. Excellent. Well, I hope that was all really useful. Thank you so much, everybody, stayed to the end, because I know that I went on a little bit longer than I said I would. But oh, excellent! I'm so pleased you've been so helpful. Great questions. Yeah. So as always, just, you know, stay in the group, post your questions, any like takeaways that you have from this. Come into the group and ask. I think what I might do, because I in future would like the module to land on the 1st of the month and the group call to land in the middle of the month, what I might do is maybe next week I will do a Q&A inside the Facebook group. So if you have any specific questions or things that have come up from doing the first module, I will maybe do a Q&A. So if that would be handy for you guys, that I do a Q&A inside the Facebook group next week, let me know and I can sort that out, and I'll get something in the diary for that. Oh, thank you. You're so welcome. Thank you, everyone. So valuable. Thank you. Oh, that's wonderful. Oh, thank you for all your lovely comments. I'm pleased that you're all feeling inspired. Great, Charlotte. I'm so pleased. Excellent. That's great. Brilliant. Okay, I will definitely do a Q&A next week then, and I will let you know good time. I'll probably do it again evening UK time, because then it's kind of States friendly. I'm not making you kind of get up at 2 a.m. or anything like that. I wouldn't do that. Excellent. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for showing up. Thank you so much for bringing your lovely questions. Do pop into the group and let me know your comments and takeaways and anything that any aha moments. I'd love to hear them. And any questions with the module, again, bring them to the group. And I'll let you know when the Q&A is next week. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Bye. Bye-bye.